Let's go to Dave right down the street here in Nashville. What's up, Dave?
Hi. Thank you for this. I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this.
You got it, man. Thank you for giving me a buzz, man. What's up?
So I have a 17-year-old son who's been making some bad decisions lately. My question is how to best help him in general. And specifically, I'm wrestling with whether or not to support him going away to college this fall with everything that's been going on. And I don't mean that as a punishment. I mean as just trying to do what's best for him and try to help.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so he has a strong, close family history of addiction. He's very well aware of this. About 5 months ago or so, he got caught using pot, and he was caught again just a few weeks ago. And this time, we see that he has some really, really bad grades as well. He has a good scholarship to a good small private school and has a spot on one of the sports teams there. It seems like a really good situation for most 17-year-olds going out into the world. And I've asked him what he wants to do from here, like where he wants to go, and with where he's found himself. He says if there was anything he could do, if there was no restrictions, if he could do anything that he wanted to do, he wants to go to this school and go play on this sports team. And we've had a lot of discussions about how like these things that he's been doing, these decisions he's made are not in line with that. You know, like kids don't go on to college if they're failing high school, you know, their classes in high school. So, you know, I'm scared to send him. I'm scared of setting him up for failure, but I'm also scared to not send him and scared of what would fill that void. What he would do if he wasn't going.
So let me.
And I know. Sorry.
No, it's good, man. I've had this conversation probably 5,000 times in my career, and I would hug you if you were sitting with me right now. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that the weight of this, it feels so heavy, and it feels like some of these moments are either or. We get this one right, or there's a whole catastrophic ending to the left, and we get this wrong, and right. So it feels like there's a heaviness here. So let's pull back a little bit. You said he's got a long history of family addiction. Have you struggled with addiction?
No. It's nobody in his immediate family. His uncle, grandfather's brothers, and it's pretty profound stuff.
Okay. Brothers, uncles, grandparents on your side or on wife's side?
On mom's side.
Okay. What do you and mom do for a living?
We're both in healthcare.
Okay.
Both like master's level healthcare providers.
Okay. Great income? Good at what you do?
Yes, very solid and yeah, both pretty good at what we do, I'd say.
Okay. So the next couple of things I'm going to say, I'm fishing a little bit, just admittedly, okay?
Sure.
And normally if you were and I were sitting down for like a coaching session, we would talk for a couple hours, but I'm going to get cut right to the chase. And I need you to promise me you're not going to take some of the things I say as indictments of ways you have failed. Is that cool?
Right. Yeah, totally.
When somebody tells me they have a long generational history of addiction, the first thing that comes into my mind is a long history of performance-based disconnection. A long history of performance-based disconnection. The suckiest part about being a parent of a 17-year-old who smokes weed is that weed works really well, especially on a young mind. It takes away that gnawing anxiety. You and I both know also that it kills drive, it kills sexual dysfunction, it's terrible for a developing brain, all those things, we know that. But for a 17-year-old, it works. And so my question is always with a 17-year-old, not why are your grades suddenly falling off? Why are you suddenly smoking weed? You got in trouble and then all of a sudden you're doing it again? And you've been doing it again? That's never my question. My question is always, why are you hurting? What about your world? How are you in so much pain that this is the only way you can soothe that pain? See how there's a difference there?
Yeah, I do.
And let me tell you this. And so I work with really high performing families all over the country, have for years. And it was a revelation to me when I found out that addiction can be really hard drugs. It can be heroin, it can be cocaine, it can be all kind of things. Then I learned it could be pornography and sex. Then I learned it could be 90-hour work weeks. And it could be, we have to make this much money. We have to have this grades. We have to have clothes that look like this. You got to have cars that are clean like this. And the addiction becomes the outer shell, the performance. And these things get carried on generationally, not always through, if it was always cocaine and heroin, at some point that generation ends. But somebody picks up that baton and says, oh, I'll fix this. And their life becomes one of perfection and performance. And the addiction is the same. It's just that our culture gives you $150,000 a year for it.
I don't believe that if what you're saying is like we're putting pressure on him to perform, I definitely don't think that's in line with what we've done. I'd say it's probably more the opposite, is that we have really let the kids do whatever they want to do. You want to play this sport, they play this sport. You don't want to, that's okay. You want to work here, fine. We're not helicopter parents. We honestly, the only reason we looked at his grades is because we found him smoking weed again. The one, I'd say the amount of pressure that we give to the kids is that with this one specifically, he does no homework at home. He's an awesome kid, and but he's not super studious. And so the one thing we said is like, hey, if you're not going to be doing homework at home, it means your grades are good enough for that. So like 85's minimum. If you're over 85, great. Just you do you. If you're under 85, you're grounded Monday through Friday because you should be doing more homework. And so like that's the extent of our pressure as far as to perform. Everything else is just him. I mean, he wasn't going to play any sports in school, and then he decided he wanted to go to this one specific school and do this one specific sport. And so we're happy to support him in that. But of course, he knows that part of that for us, it's like really just three things we've asked for is to be, respectful and pleasant to be around in the house. Your grades need to be good enough, and to not do drugs. That's really it. And he's violated at least 2 out of the 3 things, probably more toward 3 out of the 3 things just here lately. And this has been a couple of weeks now since we caught him the second time, and he is trying. I mean, he's doing a bunch of catch-up work, trying to get his grades better. They are starting to turn in the right direction. He was so disappointed in himself, but also just mad at us because he didn't agree with kind of the things we were doing. We were limiting his phone use, and that didn't make sense because he didn't do anything wrong with his phone. He just was angry, so angry. I was trying so hard to connect more with him because, he's 17, he's got the keys, he's just gone all the time. And now he's home and grounded for the most part. So trying to do things with them.
I want you to hear you found yourself on a track. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're a dad that loves his son. You found yourself on what I call a 21st century parenting trap. It's a loop. And I fall into it, man. So same team here, okay? I got 2 young kids too. They're not 17 yet, but they're on their way. We want to be supportive. So earlier I said I was fishing. I'm happy to hear that, man. That makes my heart feel good. And here's what sucks about being a parent. We can go too far the other way to where we create a world that feels like there's no boundaries until wham, there are. And so you've got a kid. Like, my first question to you after that is, how in the world do you have a 17-year-old and you don't know what their grades are?
Mm.
And so I can absolutely see you and your wife sitting down and saying, hey, we are not going to be those parents that are lunatics, that are overbearing or whatever. And then your 17-year-old, who's clearly got smart parents, probably has smart brothers and sisters. And I'm just talking about me personally, who I had an older sister who was on the academic decathlon team. And my younger brother missed like 2 questions on the ACT. And then there was the dumb jock in the middle, me.
Mm-hmm.
I had great expectations, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to study. I just was told, hey, if you're not doing your work, you get your crap, you better be here. I didn't know how to bridge that gap. And then what you've done is you've taken away the one thing that keeps a 17-year-old brain stable, which is relationships. And so you see this toggle between a lonely brain screaming for a reconnection and the 3 things that work for a young brain to duct tape over disconnection: alcohol, marijuana, sex. And look around at all of our kids, especially when they go to college, because we unplug them from their world and we drop them in a box and we say, make great choices together. And these are little brains saying, I need my tribe, I need my gang. And not getting these grades you see what I'm saying? And so it becomes this loop, and then he's going to work really hard, and he's really smart, and he's going to get his grades up. You know that, I know that. He's going to get them up, and he's going to white knuckle his way to not smoking weed so that he can finally get some freedom back. And then his poor brain is going to be screaming at that little 17-year-old boy with all it's got, saying, you got to reconnect, you got to reconnect, you got to reconnect. And we're just going to get on a loop here. My recommendation, the way to break the loop, is a couple fold. The first one is less conversations. Y'all start doing stuff on the regular together, just you and him. And you can say, like, I already do that. Like, this is above and beyond. This is like, you have to go to breakfast with me once a week or twice a week, and you got to go on walks with me in the evening. You just have to. And that anger is real, and the anger is justified. I get the anger, and also it will dissipate because it's a body saying this isn't how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be in a relationship, and it's right now it's me versus my parents, and you need to take that step because you're the adult. No, man, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. That's the first one. The second one is, if there's a way to teach him some study skills, or as a household, from the hours of this to this, the music's off and we all study. That's just the way this works. My wife and I set that up at our house. Like, we're a family full of nerds, right? So this isn't for everybody, but we just have reading time after school. Like, people just plop down and read, and so it's kind of awkward to not do that. Or my son will heads off into the woods and runs around by himself outside just to get his wiggles out, we call them, and then he comes back in and we all just do homework for a season. And when I'm home, I join in. I do the same thing, but it's just a rhythm and a routine. It's not, hey, you got to figure this stuff out, because some 17-year-olds haven't figured that out, and I'm one of those kids. And I guess I want you to see down the road. I didn't smoke weed in high school, okay, but I've made stupid choices, a lot of them.
Me too.
There's a lot of. Okay, so you're a perfect example. Like, I guess I wouldn't give up on this kid, and I know you're not, but I will. You know him better than me. I'm always looking at trend lines. Is the trend line heading down? Are we heading to some scary territory, or do we have a 17-year-old who is struggling, who needed some boundaries, maybe different boundaries than his brothers and sisters? And we have to shake the snow globe a little bit. His grades are going to be fine. And maybe we're going to have a conversation with coach. Maybe we're going to have a conversation with the school counseling center and say, hey, we've had some struggles in the past. We want him to see you guys once a week. Hey, coach, I want you to keep an eye on him. And we're going to watch really closely with his grades. I don't necessarily think that's an either or deal. I personally have seen kids get out of some of those situations and really blossom. And I've seen some extraordinary kids get their butts kicked out of college, right? So it's kind of both.
I definitely feel like no matter what I decide with what to do with him, in the end it can go either way, just like you're saying.
And that's the suckiest part of being a parent. That's all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm scared that, like, because I can identify with him so well. I made lots of bad decisions and turned out okay.
Right.
I feel like I turned out okay.
Yeah.
Um, but with I didn't have the addiction family history stuff, and I'm
Yeah,
so
but hey, but
scared
listen, Dave, don't put
it's
that
gonna
on. Don't
break
put
that
that on
way.
him. Don't put that on him because it's going to
Yeah,
become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah.
Okay, it's
Is
something to
it
be
okay?
aware
Like
of, but it's not prophetic. It's not. It's not guaranteed. It's not predetermined for him.
I've definitely been trying. Like, I do feel like he thinks that we don't like him,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we've been trying to say, like, hey, that's not true.
You can't
We've
say
been
it,
doing
Dave.
all these things,
You can't say it.
like family dinners. It's like those were for you. You were the only one that wasn't here when we said we have to be here for family dinners. It was so we could see you.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is that is it okay to force
Yes.
the
Yes.
connection time for a while? Because in general, he wants to be out and doing things with his friends. He wants to be going
Yes.
to play this sport. He
Yes.
wants to go to work. He wants to. So he's never around.
Yes.
Okay.
He's finding it somewhere else.
Right. Right.
He's finding it somewhere else. What you just touched on, I think, is probably one of the most understood issues with our kids. He doesn't feel like anybody likes him, but there's a group of people at school that does. And weed makes that feeling of my family doesn't like me, I don't like them. It takes the edge off of that burn. Just does. Just does. And so, yes, there is something to be said for I'm your dad, you're 17, you live in my house, you have to have breakfast with me once a week. We're going to see this concert together, and I want you to come with me. And just, dude, I sat through a Garth Brooks show. It ended up being a good time. That was not for me. That was for my son. That was for my son. The Turnstile show coming up this summer, that one's for me, but not the Garth show. But find some concerts in town. You're in Nashville, for God's sake, dude. There's one every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to spend some old man time. And here's the deal. At one of those breakfasts, you can reach across the table and say something like this. I'm going to make this really weird for us for a second, okay? Hold my hand, son. And have him look at you and say, I love you and I like you. You're a great kid. I would prefer to spend time with you than some of my knuckleheaded friends. And I haven't been doing a good job of that. And so from this day forward, it's going to be weird because I'm going to show you that I like you and that I love you. And this house doesn't work without you. And that's a totally different proposition. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
I get choked up
for
just
sure.
thinking about having that conversation.
Yeah.
And then you can tell him everything you want. You can tell him, you can tell him, you can tell him. None of that matters. You got to show him. You got to show him. And if you tell him on your way to work and you tell him on the way to a surgery you got to be a part of, and if you tell him on the way to a dinner that he's not invited to, he's getting the message loud and clear that he's kind of just in the way. And he just needs to get these grades and not do this thing and everything's fine. And that's performance-based connection. Seeing that he's a priority on your calendar, seeing he's a priority in your checkbook, and you are taking the step towards him, not just sitting there waiting for him to come to you. Now he's seeing, oh, my dad likes me. He wants to spend time with me. He laughs at my jokes. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have dads like you in my neighborhood who love their sons like you do. And I need you to hear me say, this is a trap all of us fall into, which is just this loop. We got to get paid. We have our lives. We want to do our lives. And kids, I just want you to make the grades and don't go to jail and don't do drugs. Why is it so hard? And some of our kids fall right in line. And others say, I need a little bit more. I experience the world different. Will you just show me that you like me? That's hard. And that changes everything. Thanks for the call, my brother Dave. Call anytime, man. Come by and see me. We can hang out and have coffee here in the lobby. Appreciate you, man.